And for those that are on the line, we're just going to wait maybe another minute before we do start the meeting, just to allow the few extra people who are going to join to be able to get on the line and get the Zoom all set up and everything. Hang tight. Seems to have stabilized. We don't see too many more people joining at the moment, although we do have maybe 10 more people signed up who haven't joined yet. So give it another minute. All right, we'll just give one final extension here. Just don't want to have to, repeat anything for those that might be jumping on the last minute. So. Well, what do we think?
I'm good. Les is here.
There we go. We got another participant just joined.
3 minutes into it, that's probably a fair amount of time.
Yeah. All right. Well, my remarks at the beginning are just introductory anyway. So the actual proposal or presentation is subsequent to that. So that'll allow a couple extra minutes for people to get in. But for those that have joined us on time, thank you. And thanks for taking time out of your evening to jump on and learn about this proposed project and to share your feedback. That's the main point of this exercise this evening. And we value this high level of engagement that residents in Thousand Oaks have on the local projects, and the turnout here is a good example of that. We're also, of course, taking feedback on this project through surveys, emails, our website. We put those message boards out along Hillcrest as well to notify the community about this project, to try to get the word out that there's an opportunity here through tonight's meeting, as well as the other means that I mentioned to give feedback. We've had already some community feedback on the project. We took this proposal for Hillcrest Drive that we'll be discussing tonight to the city's Traffic and Transportation Commission for review and feedback and consideration earlier this summer. And we also have taken it to the city's bicycle advisory team for review and comment as well. Just to introduce the city staff who are here, who have this road background, so you can kind of a little bit more easily identify us. I'm Nader Haidari. I'm the city engineer and the deputy public works director. And with us tonight are Jim Mashiko. He's our senior traffic engineer for the city. Kathy Naum, our transportation planner, who's our lead for bicycle and pedestrian.
Yeah, well, me too.
And also with me is Mohammed Fatimi, our engineering manager. And Elise is helping quarterback and steer this ship tonight here with admin support. We appreciate her making this possible, doing the heavy lifting. I just wanted to kick off tonight's meeting with a brief introduction on this topic. We'll get into some maps and graphics and details thereafter. But the two tenets are, the city's proud of our bicycle network. We have a pretty robust and strong one. And we just received actually the Bronze Award for Bicycle Friendly City for the League of American Cyclists. At the same time, we recognize that bicycle network is not continuous and complete. Throughout the city, there's still areas to improve. And we're also very proud of our high quality street network and our road system. They are one of the tops in the county, one of the top 1 or 2 streets networks in the entire county of Ventura. And we take their maintenance to keep them in that high level and very good condition very seriously. And we've been making major investments. The city council's been dedicating a lot of funding toward maintaining our streets and roads network. Particularly over the past few years, we've been repaving about 50 miles of streets every 2 years, which is about 1/7 of the city network. And this next pavement program coming up next spring, summer, and fall of 2022 is going to be the city's largest ever, with approximately 60 miles of roadways being resurfaced and repaved. And anytime we have that situation, we have an opportunity on our hands. Whenever we resurface the street, we kind of are starting back with a blank slate, and we have the opportunity to make optimizations or modifications to better match the changing needs of the community. We've been doing this for over 2 decades, making minor modifications to streets. We're not talking about widening streets or changing the medians. We're talking about just making striping changes to make the roadway safer for all uses. And in the case of the upcoming pavement project, we've been seeing a noticeable increase, as all have been over the last 18 months, with active transportation by our residents, both young residents and old residents and everybody in between, with increased use of pedestrian, walking, and bicycling and scooters and so forth. So we've been studying ways to make the street safer for all of those increased uses going forward. So in some areas, we're able to make minor adjustments to the roadway striping after we resurface them in very minor ways, or just slightly narrowing a few lanes and making slight enhancements. You may have seen some of the green bike boxes or green bike lanes here and there. And in other areas, it requires a more substantial change. And that's one of tonight's meeting. The purpose of that meeting is this is one of those scenarios where we have an opportunity to repurpose one of the travel lanes into a alternative lane for bicycling and other uses to increase safety. So Hillcrest is one of these that we're studying, and we'll be talking about the benefits and the details of that shortly. But I guess the point to reiterate is, we resurface these roadways every 10 or 15 years. And so those are those opportunities we have to basically do a no-cost modification, because they're going to be restriped anyway, as opposed to making these changes as a standalone, which would be, have a greater taxpayer impact to restripe a roadway that's already existing. So that's the opportunity, and that's the point of tonight's meeting, is to get the feedback on this proposed concept before we go any further with it. And so I'll hand it over to Kathy. She'll guide us through some of the details so we can discuss this further. Thank you.
Thank you, Nader. I'm pulling up a brief presentation. Okay, hopefully everyone can see this. So just before I get started on the presentation, I want to let you know that how we're going to do things. So after my presentation, each person will have 2 minutes to speak. Elise will call your name, and don't forget to unmute yourself when you're going to speak. They're going to be called alphabetically. And then after everyone has had a chance to speak, we'll answer some questions. And we had a meeting last night on Rena Road. And so what we think, if your name is called and you just came here to listen, or somebody's already said what you wanted to say, you can say it's already been said, or you could say you support the project or don't. You don't have to feel like you have to speak, but feel free. That's the whole purpose of this meeting, is to have an exchange between everyone who's here, and you're absolutely welcome to. Okay, this is, as Nada was saying, this the 2020 Pavement Project. It's this is a citywide map, and all the colored streets on this map are part of the project that are going to be repaved. And we're going to be talking about Hillcrest Drive. And this is the limits of Hillcrest Drive that we'll be talking about tonight, even though more of Hillcrest Drive will be repaved. This is the section that we're focusing on between Lynn and Moore Park. So probably very aware that this is the existing striping on Hillcrest. It's the segment's 1.5 miles long. It's a 6-lane road. There's 3 lanes in each direction, and there's no painted bike lane. There's a sidewalk on the south side between Lynn that extends between Lynn to Moore Park. And there's a sidewalk on the north side, but it is only between McLeod and Moore Park. The average daily trips, or as we call them, vehicles per day, is 19,000. The count for the trips was done in 2012, and that's typical that we do counts every several years, and we haven't done any during COVID, of course. And counts are done during non-peak season times. It's not done during Christmas. It's not done during the summer, because that's not a normal time. It's only done when school's in session. They're done Tuesday through Thursdays, not if there's any holidays in there. If it rains, we don't count those counts. We do it at a different time. And the speed limit is posted 45 miles an hour. Okay, so this is what we're considering. One of the options, the option out there is to take the number 3 lane, which is the curbside lane, and make it a striped bike lane, and then there would be a buffer next to it. And but it's important that everyone understand, when you get to the intersections, the bike lane and the buffer would be dropped. We're not going to be losing any of the level of service at the intersections, particularly like westbound Hillcrest. When you approach Lynn, there's not going to be any lane drops there. Or when you get to Moore Park Road going eastbound, there all the existing lanes will be left the way they are, because we really don't have any extra room there to put a bike lane in there. Okay, so just in terms of timing and benefits, not to run over a bunch of these key points, is that we really take this as an opportunity to restripe every time we do a pavement program, what can be done. And the first thing we do as engineers is look at, is there capacity out there is there excess capacity, I should say, to use to add a bike lane or add a buffer. And that's the first thing we did. And with the 19,000 vehicle per day, the road can easily be served with up to 36,800 vehicles per day. And that's if there's 2 lanes in each direction. A good example is, well, I'm sorry, I won't go into, it's going to go into too much detail, but that's pretty much why we're doing it now. And if we didn't do it now, and let's say in 5 years from now, we wanted to add a bike lane, it's really a mess to and costly to grind off the existing striping and then put in new striping. And it's not efficient and ends up looking really terrible because of the grinding.
And Kathy, also just quickly on that note, those numbers you had on the previous slide, that's the 36,000 vehicles per day is what can be accommodated with a 2-lane road. Which is what exists for most of Hillcrest Drive.
Correct.
Or 4 lane, 2 lanes each direction.
Right.
4 lanes total.
Thank you. The project benefits are listed on the slide. In summary, striping bike lanes will definitely increase the safety for cyclists on the street. It also will help pedestrians, because they then are walking further away from the vehicles when the vehicles are traveling on the street. There's an extra 12 feet. And we've also been told from the fire station, that this will help them pull in and out of the fire station because they're now only negotiating 2 lanes of travel instead of 3 lanes of travel. So our next steps after this meeting, we'll continue to receive public input through the end of August. And then in September, staff will sit down and look at all the public input, all the emails, the survey results, phone calls, everything on social media, and consolidate that. Through October and November, there's a final design for the pavement project will take place, and the staff report will be written. And about that time, staff will have an idea of what staff's recommendation to city council is, and we'll put it on the website that's listed, thetokes.org /lanes. And then at the December 14th city council meeting, council will hear the item, and then they'll authorize the staff to send the project out to bid so that we can get a construction started in the spring. I should say it's very important at the December 14th meeting. It's open to the public, and anyone can come, and it could be, you know, virtual at that time, who knows, and give their public input at the same time. Council is always listening to what the public has to say. So even though right now we're going to say the formal public input process is ending in the next couple of weeks, it really doesn't end. You have up until December 14th when it goes to council. So with that, I'm going to stop screen sharing and hand it off to Elise, who's going to start calling everyone alphabetically.
Very good.
All
And just
right.
for everyone's sake, there's roughly, roughly 20 speakers, I believe. So.
Yes. So welcome to tonight's meeting, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and start calling everyone's names. Once I do, you can unmute yourself, but let's go ahead and start. So the first person, let's see if he is here. No, he is not. So we're going to go to Paul Blakelock. Let me go ahead and unmute you first, and then you can unmute yourself. 1 second. Okay, should be asking you to unmute, Paul.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
Was not prepared to go first. All right. Well, I have 0 notes. So fortunately, I talked to Kathy before because I was concerned about this, and she explained that we aren't really just basing this on the daily vehicles, because when I read that, I thought that is the craziest thing I've heard. But we're also kind of ignoring the peak traffic. You know, I know we can't base it on the shopping season, but it's a mess then. We're also talking about increasing housing density in that area when we look at what's been going on with our building plan. That's an area for a lot more building, which potentially is going to give us a lot more traffic. I'm not opposed to the one on Reno because there's not as much traffic there, but this one is just too busy. And if you do it, make the traffic lanes wider. It's like, I know they just show it, just looking at that picture, they look narrower to me, even though I know they're not. But just from losing that lane, it makes everything look more difficult to drive, essentially. And I'm concerned about people, you know, merging with the bike lanes and the bikes going across. And I don't know. I'm not impressed with drivers lately. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. The next one I have on my list is Johannes Boom. Okay, Johannes, go ahead and let's see. I'm sorry. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute.
Yeah, I think I'm on unmuted. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
I moved to the US about 16, 17 years ago. I'm Dutch, so I've been riding my bicycle my whole life. When I moved to the US, actually our office was across from the mall. So exactly the street that we're talking about. The first time I jumped on my bicycle there, I think there's actually a sign when you go towards Lynn that says, don't ride your bicycle here, cross the street, go on the pedestrian sidewalk. And I was like, really? why is this happening? You know, I mean, why can't I ride my bike here? Why can't I ride my bike home and come back the next day? I've got a road bike, I got a mountain bike, I put a lot of miles in. I appreciate this initiative. If I can support it, whatever I can do, let me know, and hopefully you guys can pull this off. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Fred. Okay, or I'm sorry, thank you, Johannes. The next person I have on the list is Carter Castillo. Let me go ahead and let you speak. Hold on one second. It should be asking you to unmute.
I don't have anything to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carter. Okay, let's see. Let me go ahead and go to the next person who is here that's on the list. Clint Foltz. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Hold on one second. I got to find your name. I'm sorry. Oh, it looks like Clint may have left. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the next name.
No, he hasn't left. He's still
He
there.
isn't? Okay. Oh, there's Clint. Okay, it should be asking you to unmute, Clint.
Hello,
There you
thank
go.
you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. So thanks to the City of Thousand Oaks for hosting this event. It is really appreciated. I'm Clint from the Caneo Climate Coalition, and I wanted to voice our support for the bike lanes on East Hillcrest. The transportation sector accounts for 62% of all greenhouse gas emissions in Thousand Oaks, and new bike lanes would be a great opportunity to reduce pollution by increasing bicycle ridership in our community. I personally drive to and from work on East Hillcrest 5 days a week, and there seems to be plenty of space for bike lanes, even at rush hour. And I'd love to be able to ride my bike down to Sprouts and back to McLeod, but it's pretty sketchy right now. So I would really like to see some more bike lanes. And I'd also like to advocate for protected bike lanes. I understand that they aren't part of the current plan, but I'd just like to quickly plant some seeds. Bike ridership increases across the board when there's protected bike lanes. Cities that build protected lanes for cyclists end up with safer roads for people on bikes and people in cars and on foot. Protected, separated bike facilities was one of the biggest factors associated with lower fatalities and lower injuries for all road users, according to one study. So I'll say it one more time, protected bike lanes. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, the next person I have on the list is Deb Gill. Deb, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute. Deb, are you there? Deb Gill? Okay, we're going to go ahead and go to the next person. Abby Gorman. Okay, let me go ahead and find your name, Abby, and I will get you unmuted. Go ahead, Abby.
I don't have anything to add, but thank you.
Okay, thank you, Abby. Okay, the next one on the list would be Elaine Hagan. Let me go ahead and unmute you, Elaine. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I only learned about this project today in the Acorn. And so I just want to say I'm really in favor of any bike lane anywhere in the city. The more, the better. And I really hope that this gets approved. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Elaine. Okay, so the next person on the list will be Steve Hobbs. Let me go ahead and find your name, Steve, 1 second. Okay, go ahead and you're unmuted, or unmute yourself.
Hello, this is Steve. I also just learned about the bike lane in this Zoom call, so I'm kind of cold on this, but I would agree with Clint that I would like to see protected bike lanes, but without that, I mean, I'm all for this bike lane. My experience with the previous projects, like on Avenue de los Opelos, it makes the congestion, I mean, it's just simpler when there's bike lanes like this. The traffic knows where they're going and the bike lanes know where they're going, or the bicyclists, I should say. That's it, thanks.
All right, thanks, Steve. Okay, so the next one on the list will be Les Leach. Let me go ahead and find your name, Les, and you'll be able to talk. Hold on 1 second. trying to see if Les is still here.
May not be. I think we had the same scenario last time where he was in the meeting, but he
Okay,
wasn't
not a
able to
problem.
comment.
All right. Okay, so let's go to the next person. Amy Nesbitt will be next. Let me go ahead and find your name, Amy. Okay, go ahead and unmute yourself, Amy.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having these meetings. I actually just found out about this meeting within the last week as well, and was given an email from a friend of mine who's in the Amgen Bike Club, and they had circulated something around to their people to let them know about these meetings for the bike lanes. I am absolutely in favor of them. I actually was born and raised in Thousand Oaks, right there at good old Las Robles, and now being 50, I've put a lot of years and miles on these roads on my bike. I have to say that I also am in favor of protected lanes. I understand that's a much bigger construction project. There was a brief period of time where I lived in Vegas and there were literally no bike lanes in Vegas. So coming back here, I moved back here specifically for the bicycling friendliness of this community. And that's why I moved back about 5-10 years ago. My thing is, I think that there's not going to be that much impact. The Sharrows don't really seem to do much good on the other side of Hillcrest. You still have drivers who think that they own the road and that you have no right to be on it as a cyclist, unfortunately. So I think that these lanes will actually make it very clear that we do have a right to be on those roads. In fact, that's where we should be, not on the sidewalk. It is actually illegal for us to be on sidewalks. They're made for pedestrians, but a lot of drivers don't understand that and they don't read their handbook. So I think this would be a big benefit to any cyclist anywhere to have this showing that, yes, this is where we're supposed to be. This is where we belong. So thank you very much for including us and giving us an opportunity to speak on that. I did miss a meeting yesterday, but I'm in favor of that one as well. And I'm hoping to make the one on the 30th, but I'm also in favor of that one too. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go to the next person.
This is Deb Gill. I couldn't unmute myself before.
Oh, okay. Okay, Deb, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
My comments are that Hillcrest is one of the few thoroughfares between Lynn and Moore Park that actually lets traffic travel as it should. And with the mall there, that third lane provides the access in and out of the malls and of the other stores and all the storefronts. So I think it's important that that be kept as a 3-lane, particularly on the south side. But the opportunity this city does have is that you have all commercial property from Lynn to Moore Park, and a lot of that is just landscaping. Why doesn't the city negotiate with the landowners to purchase that and build, as Clint had mentioned, a protected bike lane in 2 lanes on the south side along that thoroughfare? That would take care of the needs of the bicyclists, and it would keep that road open to motorists, and it's a much needed access way. In addition, I think this is ill-timed because we just had our city council 40-year planning meeting come up, and the Oaks Mall is one of the targeted areas, and so is the Jans. Right there, you can't take away lanes where you're going to increase the density. It doesn't make sense at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Deb. Okay, next person on the list will be Joey Liu. Let me go ahead and find your name, Joey. 1 second. Okay, go ahead and unmute yourself, Joey.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, yeah. So at the beginning of the COVID, when they shut down all the biking trails, I started road biking in Thousand Oaks to commute to work, and I discovered that it was an incredible decision for myself. And I know both sides, are passionate and have their biases, and I won't make a recommendation one way or the other, but I do kind of urge people just to go biking. And if a lane doesn't emerge or anything like that, that's fine. I'm fine with that. But I just think if people bike more, instead of like kind of getting onto their sides and whatnot, I think it would just kind of improve just kind of the quality of life or all of us Conejo people.
Great. Well, thank you, Joey. Next person to speak is David and Christy Mcbride. All right, let me find your names. Hold on one second. Okay, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. First of all, I want to kind of echo what Deb said. I agree wholeheartedly with her comments. In addition to that, I just don't feel that it's honest to eliminate 4 months out of the year and 4 days out of the week from your study. So I did a Google search while we were looking at this, and the Christmas season starts, the shopping season starts in September. So we've got 4 months out of the year that we're eliminating. So that's 25% of the year, or 4 months out of 12 that we're eliminating. And then we're only looking at Tuesday through Thursday on traffic counts. So I think the traffic counts are very dishonest. And I think we need to readjust that and relook at what those traffic counts really are, because I believe eliminating that lane will create a lot of, much more congestion than there already is there during those times, especially when you look at Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which are the highest traffic days on those streets. So I think we need to be more honest about that and include those. So those are my comments. I'd like to see that information before I would even consider making a decision on this, because it's dishonest to make a decision without all the information. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Will Christy be speaking as well?
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, David. Okay. Next person to speak is Andrew Fletcher. Let me go ahead and find your name, Andrew, and go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Drew Fletcher. I'm one of the members of the Traffic and Transportation Advisory Commission. Just wanted to come here tonight as we had this matter come before us in our last meeting, and it's great to see staff doing such fantastic outreach to the community. I'm generally in favor of especially this Hillcrest portion, and really, I look at it from two reasons. I think Clint already brought it up, was just planning for the future in terms of commitment to alternative forms of transportation. I think that's key. But also, as you plan for the future and you look for the increased density in the Jan's Mall, Thousand Oaks Mall area, it's good because it's a good idea, because we're going to see more walkability in the area as people walk, throughout their neighborhoods, in and out of where they live, and hopefully they're shopping, they're eating, they're enjoying themselves. They're not getting in their cars, and I think it's a good idea. And the beauty of it is, though, and I'm sure staff will get to it if they haven't already, is that we can keep studying the issue, keep looking at it, and see if any other further changes need to be made. It's not the total end of the road, so to speak. So thanks, everybody, and thank you, staff.
Thank you, Drew. Okay, so next person on the list will be Pat Randall. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Pat.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having this. I think this is great. Also, I was really impressed that you are looking out 15 years, and I think it's extremely important that we do look at where we're going in the next 15 years. Recently, I'm sure I ride a lot. I ride my bike on Hillcrest quite a bit. We try to avoid it as much as possible, but it is, one of my points is, there is no good link between Lynn and Moore Park for bikes. There's none. The rest of it is all neighborhoods, and you got to wind through. I'm not even sure what streets go through. We do sometimes, to avoid the traffic, go through the mall, which actually lends another hazard, that they're very interested in finding parking spaces and not too interested in watching out for bikes. And they get very irritated at us going through there because, they're shopping. So 15 years is a long time. If we look at what's happened during COVID and during this last year, one thing you have to notice is the e-bike boom. Many, many people who had not ridden before, and many people who were riding but were struggling, are now shopping. They're going to the mall. They're going to what do you call it, the farmer's market on their e-bikes. And you're going to see more and more of that. And one last point, it's very important that this bike lane go in as a link, because right now the lanes are very narrow. We really have no choice but to take a lane, which means we move out into the middle of the lane, because most people are not, how would you put it, would not strike you purposely. However, if we try moving over to the very edge, I've been hit with mirrors. We've had cars, whether they were mad or not mad, we don't know, come very, very close to us. So we must move out, and we're going to be traveling slower than traffic. There'll be more and more bikes, more and more e-bikes blocking those lanes. So I think 15 years is a long time to wait to make a key improvement like this, linking Moore Park and Lynn Road. Thank you. Thank you for the process.
Thank you so much, Pat. Okay, so the next person on the list will be Tony Reed. Let me find your name, Tony, 1 second. Okay, go ahead and unmute yourself, Tony.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm with the Amgen Cycling Club. I applaud the city for hosting this and for making as many bike lanes as you guys have. It's just awesome to ride around here. I ride this section of Hillcrest every so often. It is a bit sketchy, as people have said. It's definitely a spot where you're looking over your shoulder a lot to make sure cars aren't flying up on you. Usually I do it early in the morning, and I have actually gone around through the mall parking lot, but it's been 6 o'clock in the morning when I do that, so it's not too bad. What I would like to say is, you know, I'm wondering if we could modify these lanes at some point, you know, to become protected bike lanes. I agree with what Clint said before, you know, and the Dutch model that I've sent the website for the Dutch model of bike lanes to the city in the past. And I know it's, you know, a lot more money to do that, but, you know, protecting bike lanes are even better than, I think these are called buffered bike lanes. The last thing I'd like to say is, you know, with increased density, Drew mentioned this, with increased density, you know, having more bike lanes is definitely an improvement, because people are going to be more willing to bike, and, you know, especially during peak hours. And, you know, with more restaurants popping up around, you know, the perimeter of the mall, that increases, you know, hopefully will increase the amount of people who are biking to and from those restaurants and to higher density housing. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Tony. Okay, so the next person on the list is Karen Robertson Fall. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Karen.
Okay. This is an area, we live just off of Moore Park Road, and we travel between our house and Sprouts to go shopping every week. And so we travel this road all the time. And I have seen people trying to walk across the crosswalks there at Jan's and Lynn, and I'm sorry, Hillcrest and Lynn, and they're not careful. There's lack of caution, whether you're a biker or a walker. That's a very high density intersection. And whether people are going to the mall and want to run to the grocery store on their lunch break or something, it's like they're kind of haphazard. And I'm really against making a driving lane a bike lane, because people are already distracted with going to the mall and going shopping and going out to eat. And to create a further distraction with bikes, I think it would be a mistake.
Thank you so much, Karen. Okay, so we'll go to the next person, Kat Selm. Let me go ahead and go ahead and unmute yourself, Kat.
Hi, I'm Kat, and I just want to thank the city so much for holding these meetings and for considering these bike lanes. I think it's excellent. I just want to pretty much echo what Clint said. I'm also with the Conejo Climate Coalition, and also what Drew Fletcher said. I think that these are a good thing for Thousand Oaks. I think it's a good thing for the potential new residents down the road that may be living at the Oaks. to be able to encourage more walking and biking to places like Sprouts or other grocery stores. It may actually reduce our impact on traffic in the city in the long term. But I also want to echo the sentiments on a protected bike lane. I think it's very important. And, you know, those plastic, what are they called? They're like mount posts that have reflectors on them. They're not that expensive of an investment. And I don't see why that couldn't be a part of at least like the areas where there's a blind curve there on Hillcrest. It seems like that could be a pretty critical thing to add to this project to just enhance it and make people like me who are scared of riding bikes on the road just a little bit more, you know, feeling emboldened to do it. So I encourage that, but I'm really happy to see that these meetings are taking place. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kat. Okay, next person on the list will be Trent Sigard. Let me go ahead and unmute yourself, Trent.
Hello, my name is Trent Sigard, live in Newbury Park. I'm in favor of these bike lanes. I too go through the mall as opposed to going down to Hillcrest, either when I'm going both ways. And it would be nice to stick on the road. I think as we think about the general plan, I want to echo the statements that people have made that with increased density also means increased people who want to travel in other ways. I think we have to think about the population. We want to get young families, young people into our city, and they're more mindful about their impact on the environment and want to more social travel experience around the city. With that, yeah, I'm in favor of the bike lanes and specifically protected bike lanes. I too would love to see those plastic dividers. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Trent. Okay, next person on the list is going to be Lance Umel. Okay, go ahead and unmute yourself, Lance.
Hi. Thank you for having this meeting. I am absolutely in favor of the protected bike lanes on Hillcrest. 10-year resident of Thousand Oaks and longtime Southern California resident. And I've lived in major population centers, New York, Boston, San Francisco, London. Any of these cities that actually plan for multi-mobility use actually brings about a greater value of life. And I think that's Thousand Oaks has a reputation in California and Southern California as one of the best areas to cycle. I do agree with Pat Randall that the e-mobility boom that has happened is just going to increase, and this will actually help alleviate some of the congestion problems and density issues that the city is going to face in the future. So once again, all in favor of this. I just think it leads to better quality of life in Thousand Oaks.
Thank you, Lance. Okay, let's go on to Becca Whitenall. Let me go ahead and find you, Becca, 1 second. Okay, go ahead and unmute yourself, Becca.
Hey guys, Becca with the Acorn, just listening in. Although, do you want to say thank you for Elaine for reading? Thanks, guys.
Oh, thank you, Becca. Okay, well, I think we've come to our end of our list, so thank you guys for participating, and I'll go ahead and hand it over to Nodder.
Thank you. And I guess if anybody, I believe we heard from everybody, but if we haven't, you can raise the hand feature to let us know. But I believe we were able to cover everybody. I'll address one or two of the comments that were raised, and I think maybe Kathy may have one or two comments as well. One of them was, well, two of the comments were in relation to this taking place simultaneously. There's a potential general plan modifications which are being made, which may allocate more future residential use or mixed use or residential use at the Oaks Mall and at the Chan's Mall. I guess my comment on that would be that general plan update is not finalized, and it wouldn't be finalized until next year. any projects would take, if anybody's aware of, between the California Environmental Quality Act and all the other review processes that need to take place on any project, particularly larger projects, and projects that would involve the type of capital and funding that this one would, if we're talking about Jan's Mall and Oaks Mall, maybe having some housing on site. Those are long-term proposals, and as we've indicated at the beginning of this meeting, we're looking at the next 10 years or so with this paving proposal, and at that in that same line of thinking, that means that this is not a permanent proposal. This is a kind of this near-term proposal, and obviously, if traffic conditions change, if I don't know the numbers of that general plan, it's not fully finalized yet, but let's say the number of units that are placed at the mall winds up increasing traffic, then obviously this would be reconsidered. The traffic studies that would be associated with those projects would consider all these type of impacts, and if the determination is made based on the cumulative impact of those projects at some point in time, whether that's 5 years from now, 15 years from now, 25 years from now, that those can't be accommodated with a 2-lane roadway, then this would be changed and modified. And again, at the end of the day, it's just paint on the roadway. It's not a permanent structural modification that's been made. Those projects, as a few other speakers did mention, the idea is that those projects, which are no longer going to be sprawling single-family home tract type projects, which are car-centric and they're more kind of urban style housing, those likely would not have the same type of traffic volumes with vehicle trips that normal projects would have. So again, all this is dependent on how that all unfolds. But between making the streets more usable for active transportation modes, including scooters, for instance, these electric scooters, which some people have, and obviously you can't really ride one on Hillcrest right now because there's no bike lane, there's nowhere to do it, and you're going to be in the roadway with cars going 45 miles an hour. So one of the side benefits of potentially putting this buffered bike lane in on Hillcrest Drive would account for other modes of transport which may be synchronized with some of these future developments that may take place. But again, what I want to, I guess, emphasize is none of these are permanent modifications we're making. And that's my only remark, I guess, at this time. I'll turn it back to Kathy.
Thanks, Nader. Since it was mentioned several times, the idea of having a separated bike lane with the term, I think people are starting with delineators, those plastic tubes that delineate. Unfortunately, yeah, this project is just a stripe. It's a pavement project with striping, and that's what's in the city's budget to do it. Adding anything else to it would require a different type of funding source, which is not part of this project at all. So it's funny because I'm listening to Nader say, maybe in 15 years, this may go back to being lanes, but it also maybe in 5 years, we actually put the delineators in because we get funding for it to create a separated bike lane. It's an ideal place because there's not driveways, single family home driveways that people have to get in and out of. So anyway, not just here, but throughout the city, we're continuing looking at where can we put a protected bike lane with delineators, but also we need the funding for it. And we're constantly looking for Caltrans and state money to fund projects. And the bike lane that's going in as part of the sidewalk project over on Rancho Road will be our first somewhat class 4. It's very small, but we have, it's baby steps that we actually are having one go in there. So there was a somewhat discussion about that our traffic counts really possibly don't represent all the true traffic that happens in the city. What part of when we do our traffic counts, we're looking at peak hour volumes. Those are throughout the city. The highest volumes are during the PM peak hour, even though the mall generates a lot of traffic, as well as like movie theaters during the weekends. All the other work and school traffic and after school, everything that's no longer on the streets on the weekend. So the industry standard is to do middle of the week as well as doing PM peak, unless it's a very unique type of project that's coming into the city that we want to look at and see what their type of trips would be distributing throughout the city. But in the case of traffic counts, it's an industry standard that we follow. And so I tell people we don't make private malls provide parking lots for Christmas all the time, and we don't build our streets to provide for Christmas all the time. So there's definitely more traffic during the holidays, but we don't build out our streets for just that 1 month of the year. You just recognize there's more traffic during that 1 month of the year than the rest of the city. The rest of the year.
Now, also, there was a comment about the September, those counts excluding the months of September and October and so forth. I think maybe you can clarify that one.
No, we don't count during the summer. We only count during when school's in session, but then we stop at Thanksgiving and we pick it up again in January. So there's that 6 weeks.
And that's an effort to capture the the busiest times of the year. But we don't exclude September on. In fact, September and October are often used for a traffic count.
Yes, mainly because they have the least holidays in some of the other months. That seems like every week there's another holiday that or there's weather during those other months. It used to rain in February. We couldn't count. There was a comment.
If I could jump in on, sorry, on the comment of counts, traffic counts. Someone made a comment that they feel Saturday and Sunday are the heaviest count days in that area. It's actually Saturdays and Sundays are the lowest count days throughout the city because on those days, you don't have the influence of commuter traffic, people going to and from work. You don't have school traffic, the pickups and multiple pickups and drop-off times. So, Monday through Friday, those are our busiest traffic days, and that's what our numbers reflect in terms of the daily traffic volume.
Thanks, Jim. One of the comments I wanted to address, which sounds like a good idea, using if the city could use some of the private property, acquire the private property that has the very large amount of landscaping. It's like between Wilbur going and Moore Park, but not, maybe it's McLeod to Wilbur. I'd have to think. But anyway, that idea is very similar to what we actually have on the south side by the mall, where in 1972, when the mall was built, they put this very wide sidewalk. And with the ideas that would be a class 1 bike lane so that people could ride it and walk adjacent to Hillcrest Drive. And what happens is that when you come to any intersection, if you're on a bike, you cannot ride your bike across a crosswalk. You would actually have to get off your bike and walk it or jump out into the street. And with every time you're crossing, so if you're picturing you're going eastbound on Hillcrest and you're on the sidewalk that the mall has, you have to be looking over your shoulder to see if anyone's turning into the mall, because as anyone's driving eastbound, they're just turning the mall. They're not looking at somebody on the sidewalk riding a bike to cross. And so basically that sidewalk is considered a class 1, but it's almost never used at all by cyclists because it's actually scarier to ride on that sidewalk than in the street. And so the same idea, if we were to put a class 1 on the other side of the street, more east on that property, you create the same situation, unfortunately, and I love class 1s, but unless you had a very long class 1, it actually becomes ineffective.
Now that could be looked at, if the Oaks Mall is going to do some big transformation or, with this new general plan 5 or 10 years down the road and do some sort of, housing proposal, then those are the opportunities the city has to work with property owners to see what can be done to incorporate some paseos or walkways or bike paths and so forth. So that those are always things that we're continuing to pursue and look at.
Right. One other, Amy made a comment about the site. You can't ride your bike on a sidewalk. You can ride your bike on any sidewalk in the city. Our ordinance says you have to ride it in the same direction as traffic. We're one of the few cities, but yes, by California law, you're not to ride on the sidewalk unless the city has its own ordinance. So yes, we can. And unfortunately, but it's what happens. People ride on the sidewalks because they're not feeling safe on the street. And she also made a comment about the shares not doing much good. And that's kind of an industry standard where shares are just barely something to remind a driver that yes, a cyclist is going to use the road, but it's not nearly as good. But we do have them on Hillcrest west of Lynn, where it gets so narrow that we don't have the bike lane for very small sections. So, we still put them in, but that absolutely isn't our preferred way to stripe a bicycle facility. I think that's all I have. Jim or Notter, did you want to add anything else?
I think there was one more about the drivers too distracted to handle all of it, but that's actually why the point of the project is to create an identified location and lane for the bicyclists with a buffer to improve that safety and to address the fact that to avoid the bicyclists being in the regular vehicular travel lane and having that distracted driver not pay attention or notice to that issue. So this project addresses that very comment.
Okay, yeah, I do have some comments I wanted to address as well. On that note of as far as distracted drivers and things like that, whenever we have bike lanes, as you get to the intersections, you generally notice that there's a dash line. The solid line becomes a dash line. So that's the time at which the driver can see, okay, they can, if they want to make a right turn, they can cross through that dash line and begin making, the right turn, like into the mall. Someone had concerns that current right third lane is a right turn lane, but if the bike lane does go in, we would have it striped in such a way that about 200 feet before each intersection, you start seeing that dash line that tells the driver, you could begin entering that bike lane area, and then cyclists also know that when they see that dash line, they have to look out for drivers ready to make that right turn. There was also someone asked about, wider lanes. Can we make the lanes wider? Currently, the lanes that we have on Hillcrest Drive are 12 feet wide each. That's the standard width of a travel lane. If you do make them wider, we found that, speeds tend to increase. And I know, well, number one, we don't have the real estate to make the lanes wider. And number two, wider lanes generally means higher speeds. The other concern was, if there's congestion that could be created. Well, one thing about Hillcrest Drive is that our traffic signals between Moore Park and Lynn Road, we do have them synchronized. So we have the ability to adjust timing. If people feel they're being delayed between that segment, we can always adjust the timing, give a little bit more green time back to Hillcrest and sort of compensate for the change if the bike lane does go in. And I think that's about it.
Thank you, Jim. Looks like we have two of our residents with some questions. One of them, whose name now is I have a question. So let's go to Mr. or Mrs. I have a question. Please go ahead and share your question with us.
Thank you. I appreciate you recognizing that. I just heard some discrepancies where Jim, I think what I heard him say is that the traffic counts were Monday through Friday, but I heard Kathy say earlier it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then, so that was discerning. And then Kathy, you said that the Christmas shopping time, in your opinion, is from Thanksgiving to Christmas. But if you do some research online, you'll see that it's from September to December. So it's a much bigger time frame. And then if you eliminate summer, we basically eliminated half the year from our numbers, which again is just not honest. I mean, I'd like to see that. Jim, you said that the Saturday, Sunday traffic is less. Well, I'd like to see those numbers. Don't just feed me information you want me to hear. I want to see all the numbers so I can make my own decision as an intelligent resident of the community. That's with regards to this project. And the other question I had is that I noticed there's no Dos Vientos Zoom call for the lane changes that are proposed there. Is that planning, is that going to happen? Am I just behind the times, or are we not going to do a Zoom call for that?
Hey, Jim, do you want to talk about the traffic counts?
Yeah, I mean, there's the traffic counts that we collect when we put our machines. You've probably seen them out on the road. You see the black hoses across the street. We collect them for the entire week, and the ones that we end up using are is data. We look at them Monday through Friday, and typically Tuesday to Thursday is probably when we get our most normal, our level of data. Mondays and Fridays sometimes are a little bit lower, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday generally are the highest volume data that we get during the week. So we end up using those, but we usually don't include weekend data whenever we do reporting, because we know that it is lower. We're not trying to hide anything. I mean, we can look that up and share that information with you if you have your email address. I mean, we can try to share that or get that information to you.
Well, I think it would be good to share that with the entire community. not just, I mean, I'd love to see it too. And Kathy has my email address because I've emailed her, but if the entire community could see that information, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it's also anecdotal too. I mean, I'm a Thousand Oaks resident. Obviously weekends are by and large, lower traffic, for whatever reason, whether people are home watching football or at the beach or something, and not shuttling their, kids to school and so for commuting. But we also have that data, like Jim mentioned, we collect it for 7 days when we put those two.
Well, I can find a parking spot at the Oaks Mall on a Wednesday much easier than I can on a Saturday. So that's from my perception, that's what I'm seeing. So that's why, again, I think it would be honest just to share all that information with everybody. And if what you're saying is accurate, then great, we can take that into consideration. But without it, it's hard to make a decision.
Right. Well, what was your? We don't have your name any longer. Just so we
it's David Mcbride. I was on here earlier. I just I wanted to make sure I had a question beyond my and the question that I had was about the Dos Vientos.
Right. And Mr. Brett, we are not having a meeting for Dos Vientos. It's not scheduled right now. I can talk to you about it offline. Since this meeting is really talking about Hillcrest, I'm not going to go into all the detail what we're doing for Rancho Dos Vientos. But how about if I give you a call tomorrow and we can talk about it?
Yeah,
that'd be great. You have my information.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Pat Randall. See if we can up the.
Oh, here we go. My computer was trying to outthink me, but it didn't work. Well, thank you once again. And I think the bike lanes are a really great idea. Well, one thing that I do notice that happens when we reach the intersections, and I didn't look at the details on your restriping, but when we reach the intersections, we have a tendency just to stop the lane and then let everybody figure it out. And that creates a lot of confusion for the drivers and the bicyclists, and where these lanes are going to be starting and stopping are key intersections. So my suggestion is that we, utilize some green paint, show how the bicycles can get straight through these intersections, and then also show how they can make, the left turns. And if you go through Ventura, they've gone through and did quite a number of intersections, and it's very, very key, I think, and it helps the drivers. They know that the bicyclists aren't just being crazy, and it helps the bicyclists that we know where to go. Sometimes, as much as I've ridden around the city, we look and we're baffled. We're like, okay, hold it. How did we do this last time? And how'd that work out for us? So if we could just make sure that at each end, we have a good plan for helping everybody get in the direction that they need to go, I think that would be great.
Thank you. Paul Blakelock. And just so the others prepare, we'll go to Deb Gill afterward and then Amy Nesbitt. Okay, go ahead.
Had to unmute twice. So a number of people said they just found out about this meeting, and that's not surprising. I was involved in some of the general plan meetings, and people were finding out about that just as the meetings were started. And, I knew from the experience it wasn't through lack of effort. So, they did a lot of advertising for that and people still didn't find out about it. But I am seeing an enormous amount of representation by bike clubs, bike riders here. That is, of course, the people that have the most interest. But I just want to point out, you're not really getting much representation from the people like me that just stumbled on this yesterday and wanted to make an opinion. As far as I would like to see more looking at the traffic, as was already suggested. At one point, I thought you said the daily count was from 2012 data. 10 years old to make a decision like this, it's going to last 15 years, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So maybe it's time to update those numbers. In general, the idea of counting during midweek makes a lot of sense to me in residential areas, in areas around schools. but it doesn't make as much sense in areas where you mostly have businesses. A lot of people can only do their shopping on weekends, and something like the mall, I think, does tend to get busier. I have no idea which one's actually busier. I just think it needs to be addressed again. The not being able to make the road lanes wider. Well, you do have the real estate if you don't make the bike lanes 12 feet. If you're eliminating a 12-foot lane, you don't have to make all 12 feet of it into a bike lane. You can make 10 feet of it into a bike lane and expand the car lanes by a foot each. Because let's face it, the bikes, no matter how much space you have, I know most of you are bike riders, but you just tend to ride towards the outside. Nobody wants to ride in the gutter. And you know, it ends up having cars move over. So I think giving cars a little more maneuverability is a good thing. If you have to make a lane narrower, make it the one in the center, because those people don't have to, you know, watch out for the bikes as much. And there will be more merging, because you were talking about going to 3 and 2 lanes. And let's see, finally, just the general comment about, you know, Hillcrest is really the only choice for bikes. Well, to a large degree, it's the only choice for cars too. Thousand Oaks Boulevard is all about slowing things down and making people shop. And you have the freeway and you have Hillcrest, and that's it. So, you know, it's just the way the city is, but we, you know, we both want to get somewhere. And I don't know, I just don't see other options. I say, well, bikes can go through the residential areas. Cars, not so much. Okay, that's all I've got. Thank you.
So I just want to talk a little bit about the lack of the feeling that people have information about the meeting, which is always a challenge for anyone trying to get information out there. We put the signs up last Thursday, hoping that at least people over the course of 1 week, if people usually use Hillcrest Drive, they would be able to see the signs. We put them on both ends. And then it had on the sign was a link to, it showed you the link to go to the city's website. Complete with the understanding is that you'd have to drive by it probably a couple times to make sure you got the information down, because you're driving and hopefully not texting. But that is the challenge for getting the word out. We sent letters to all the adjacent property owners, so all the commercial businesses as well as the residential homes. There's on the north side, there's apartments and condos. They all got a letter mailed to them. But you know, we're very fortunate. Thank you, Becca, for writing the article, and it got out in the Acorn today. And I can tell you I had a lot of calls today because she put my phone number in there. But that's you know, there's only so much limitations. We didn't have any other way to really get out there, but we did think putting out the information out a week earlier would get a lot of people informed about it. And
it is a citywide issue though, so I appreciate you did the local people and had to tell them. And like I said, I don't think you did a bad job on that. That's why I brought up the general plan thing. They went to just an enormous amount of work, and still people didn't know about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I was going to add.
Let's hear from Deb Gill.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Again, I did not hear about this until I picked up the Acorn off of my driveway today. And with the general plan, if you're registered on the website, you get emails sent. I don't know why you can't be included in the general City of Thousand Oaks website sending out notices, because that would get to anybody that's ever registered with you. And that's the way it should be done. But again, with your bike lanes, it's a great idea if you're single and you're on your way to work. But how about families? How do families get around? You're not going to put your kids on 4 bikes for you to go to the store. You have no choice. You have to jump in your car, take your kids, and go to the store. So it's not, I mean, it's wonderful to say, okay, it's a great plan to have all these bike lanes, but it's not practical for everybody. It only suits a certain kind of lifestyle. And you have to consider all of your residents, not just those that have the privilege to be able to be in a location where they can bike to work and not have obligations like children. So that's an important thing to take into consideration as well. And back to the Oaks Mall and the property available, that in giving out permits to do building, they can build all kinds of things within that property that could have the bike lanes inside of the mall or at the outside of the mall, but just you can control the turning in. There's only four or five inlets. You can do that with lights. So I don't think taking away a lane of traffic to put in bike lanes really makes sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll address, I think, both of those items. In terms of the traffic on Hillcrest, so we have the same 2-lane configuration on Lynn Road, right within this project boundary, and Moore Park Road, and Thousand Oaks Boulevard, and other portions of Hillcrest. So, which more than satisfactorily carry the traffic, that is very similar. In fact, many of those have higher level of vehicles per day than this portion of Hillcrest has. So that kind of goes to also your comment about not everybody can bike, and we totally understand that. But as it currently stands, the bicyclists essentially cannot use Hillcrest, which is the primary east-west linkage to get west of Moore Park Road there. So what the goal of the project is to make this roadway accessible for all different users. Right now it's skewed 99.9% for vehicles, and we're trying to balance that scale a little bit and have it also be usable for bicyclists, and meanwhile keeping sufficient capacity for vehicle uses. So that's the remark there. As far as the Oaks Mall, we mentioned that earlier. Their plans, as they get developed and as they come to fruition and as they go to be implemented, if they choose to implement it, again, that general plan is just a plan. It's a plan to the year 2045. So nobody can compel any developer to do anything. But if somebody chooses to redevelop, then that's the point in which the city would be cooperating and collaborating with those private property owners to try to get some amenities for the public. And so that would certainly be something that would be pursued. And if we're successful in doing that and having a separated bike lane through the Oaks Mall, then then this can be reevaluated. And again, at the end of the day, this is just striping on the ground. We're not physically moving or deleting or losing any real estate here on the roadway that couldn't be repurposed at a later date to satisfy the changing needs of the community if those needs continue to change. So it's an opportunity. Amy Nesbitt has had her hand up. Let's see if she can share any additional comments.
Hi, yes, thank you so much for letting me speak again. I just want to make a few key points. Just to clarify, I did see the sign on Hillcrest over by the Jan's Mall, but again, I was not able to read it before I had to go through past it. And that's why I reached out to my friend who is in the Amden Bike Club, and he shared that information with me about the meetings today and also the surveys. But I actually was in a bike accident on Teal Boulevard when I was 15. And at that time, Hillcrest was not even built out the way that it is right now. So that was actually the best option to take. I got hit by a guy who doored me opening up his car door there parked along the boulevard. This is a fantastic road. It's a great thoroughfare. It's definitely something that I prefer to use over Thousand Oaks Boulevard just because of that. And I have to say that I believe there's 2 lanes on both sides of this stretch. When you approach it, it's definitely 2 lanes coming by Sprouts. And I believe it's it narrows back down to 2 lanes afterwards. So it isn't like we're all of a sudden now limiting it through the whole road. The main part of the roadway is only 2 lanes. Also, there are obstacles in that first lane for the bicyclists. There are sewer grates, there's a debris sometimes. And so to say that, you know, when we push out into the lane and we don't ride right up next to the gutter, there's a reason why we don't. There's definitely obstacles there that are more hazardous to a bicycle tire than they are to your car driving over them. So you don't see them, you don't recognize them, but we as cyclists have to be very cautious of that. And that's something that I also brought up in my notes on the survey, is that I hope that when these lanes are put in, that also is taken into consideration as you're paving and where the striping is done, so that we can at least have some way to maneuver around some of those various obstacles. Those are some of the things that I just wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, as Kathy mentioned, I guess if I go back to the schedule, the surveys are still open, I believe, for several more days. And then in the months of September and October, you know, the conceptual design of this paving project, which includes many other elements, but it also includes these potential optimizations of striping, would be further developed. And depending on the various channels of feedback, which have been telephone calls, emails, survey, and these particular meetings here, the city will move forward in one direction or the other. And that will be presented to the city council on December 14th. That's the tentative date. That potentially could change, but likely will be that date. And at that point, that recommendation to the city council would include the modifications that may be made to this street, as well as the one or two others that are being contemplated, which would be another chance for anybody to provide feedback or opinions about in favor or against of any of those possible changes before the city council makes their decision, and then project goes into construction the following spring and summer of next year. So those are the opportunities there. And again, these are this turnout is good. I mean, one can always hope for more and more turnout. And this is pretty robust for a roadway meeting, but we feel in one regard, maybe having these meetings virtually has helped slightly increase the attendance of them. As others that may not have been so inclined to drive to City Hall in the evenings, that take up half their evening in the past. But so we appreciate everyone's time in their participation tonight. If you have follow-up comments or questions or additional thoughts that come in, if you go to the toaks.org/lanes, you can reach the survey there and our email there, and provide additional feedback to us so we can consider some of these details as we do go forward. But in general, again, I guess we see one more hand up, so let's go to Paul. I think he's going to serenade us with a song here. Hold on, you're unmuted still. I mean, you're muted still. There you go.
I had a hard time finding the link for this meeting today. I know the URL you were just talking about, but I tried to do a Google search. I couldn't find it. I got on the city website and I went through like 15 different pages and couldn't find it. So I don't know.
We're in the process of going to a whole new, designing a whole new website that has better search capability. Ours doesn't talk to Google fast enough or search results in real time. I don't know how Google indexes things, but there's some slowdown there between the search feature. And so, we try to make it a short link so it doesn't, you have to type this monstrous thing. But if you don't know what that short link is, then you're right. How are you able to even try to find it? So
I was surprised how difficult it was, because I knew it was happening and I knew what terms to search in Google, and I know it's not like a brand new thing. So I just want to make you aware of it.
No, you're absolutely right. And one of the features of the new website is the landing page should hopefully have a calendar right there that shows what's going on today, this week, this month, all city different events. So you can, it's right there. You don't even have to dig for it. So you're definitely correct there.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And again, thank everybody so much for your time, and it's always open to feedback. Here, we got one more hand up. Amy Nesbitt. Please go ahead and.
It's not letting me. Okay, I said hi. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I did try going even just to the city website and trying to find it there, and I never did find it, which was why I eventually reached out to my friend who was in the Amgen Bike Club. So I did want to add that, yeah, it's very difficult. And even your calendar says that you're on recess and there are no meetings or anything taking place for the city. So I was like, okay, so where do I go from here?
Yeah, that's I guess right now that's the official city council calendar. So it only shows those big items, which is primarily council meetings, which they have had their summer, well, next week is the next council meeting. So yeah, the council, I mean, the calendar on the website is very light right now, but there's certainly more going on than just shown on there right now. So.
Yeah, so I think that a calendar would be very helpful. I'd be very much in favor of that as well. So thank you.
And thank everybody. And there's still some daylight out there if you need to walk your dog. So
Yeah.
thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.